Hey everybody, welcome back to Checkerboard Chat, the official sports podcast of the Daily Beacon. I'm Tyler Wombles and that's DeMichael Cole. We're back here bringing you some more Tennessee athletics news, updates, discussions, whatever we feel like talking about. So first of all, just to get this kicked off, DeMichael, it's been a little bit of a rough stretch for the Tennessee softball team. Starting off, they had that series against South Carolina, they lost, then they got, beat by Georgia. Had two straight run-rule games. It was actually the first time that the Tennessee softball team has lost in run-rule games, consecutive games at home, the first time ever in their program history. And I think I heard it was just the second time they've lost two consecutive games by run rules since 2008.
Yeah.
So, especially for this team that started out off so strong, they had like a win streak that was in the 20s, I think.
I think it was 22-game win streak and 31 fastest start in program history. So
sure.
Yeah.
So, DeMichael, just take me through that. What have you seen from this team lately, and do you think this is more of just a bump on the road, or is it more cause for concern for Ralph and Karen Weekly and their squad?
Well, it's a cause for concern, definitely. I mean, you get run ruled in consecutive games. There's definitely a cause for concern there. But you look at how well this team started the season, and did they really think, that they had a lot of things to work on? I mean, obviously the coaches were saying, we need to work on this, we still need to work on this, during the, 22-game win streak and, the 30-1 start. But, I mean, they got off to the fastest start in program history. And, I mean, they were rolling. So now they're getting, that reality check, that bump in the road that teams need usually, and a lot of teams go through. I mean, quite frankly, pretty much every year. And just for this Tennessee team, it's a lot harder bump than you probably want. But I mean, it's tough. But I mean, we've said it over and over again. This SEC is like something we've never seen. And I mean, Georgia, they're really good, and South Carolina, they were really good, and I mean, they're gonna keep coming. I mean, every team that Tennessee plays for the rest of this season will be really good. There are no more easy, run rule games that you can just look on the schedule and say that's an easy run rule game. These SEC opponents that they have coming up are all fierce competitors. So I mean, they don't have, any time to make any adjustments. They're gonna have to be in-game adjustments, and the players are just gonna have to, they're gonna have to play better. They're gonna have to pitch better, and we saw some games. They're definitely gonna have to hit better.
Yep.
So right now they're just like I think Weekly said it, or Ralph Weekly said that they just got outmatched in the Georgia game. So he doesn't think that they're, it's a confidence issue or things like that. They're just being, outmatched right now. So maybe that's a vote of confidence saying, they'll be fine eventually. Yeah.
Sure, and then, DeMichael, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I'll throw my 2 cents in there too. But, you talked about, they need to shore up some of the pitching, need to shore up some of the hitting. Which of those two aspects do you think is most vital? Do you think it's more, an issue with their pitching? Obviously they're still trying to figure that rotation out a little bit. You have Kaylin Arnold and Maddie Moss, who are those for sure starters, and Gabby Sprang is being brought up, little by little. Do you think it's more of a pitching issue? They need to get that sorted out, or do you think it's more just the offense isn't creating enough runs, not giving those pitchers enough space to operate?
I think the offense will eventually be fine. I have a little bit more confidence in this offense. I mean, you have Megan Gregg, who just set the RBI record here, and she'll set the home run record probably, maybe in the next week, maybe in the next 2 weeks, but more than likely she'll set that very soon. I think she needs 2 more home runs, and she's on pace for like 18 or 19 this season, so she should, comfortably break that record. So when you have a bat like that in the lineup, and the way Chelsea Sagan, she's hit the ball really well, she's came on strong this year. Combine that with what you're expected to get out of Brooke Vines, and Jenna Holcomb at the top of that lineup, and you have some players that that are capable, very capable of getting this offense rolling. But there are more question marks with the pitching. You know what you're going to get from Maddie Moss usually. She's one of the top pitchers in the SEC.
Yeah.
Kaylin Arnold, you usually know what you're going to get from her too, but she will, she's capable of having less than stellar performance
She's
every
young.
now. Yes,
sure.
Yeah, definitely. She's capable of, having a less than stellar performance every now and then. And then that third pitcher you talked about, Gabby, and the thing with her is, they want her to be that third starter because they need it. I mean, it's hard to win a World Series without that.
And they operated all last season with really only having 2 starters, so they know how tough that can be.
Yeah, and that finally, we saw how that bit them in that Texas A&M game. So, and you don't want to be in that position this year. No. So they need her, and they're trying to work her in, and she's probably the most important player right now to this team as far as where they're going to go this season. Because if they can get her and develop into that consistent third starter, then the sky's the limit. I mean, because pitching is what it's all about in the SEC. And, I mean, there are so many good pitchers. We saw with Georgia, they ran into some good pitching. South Carolina, they ran into some good pitching. And, I mean, it's going to continue. I mean, Texas A&M has really good pitching. LSU, and, I mean, so forth. Mm-hmm. I mean, all these teams have good pitching. So your bats, I mean, they have strong bats. Tennessee has Megan Gregg. I mean, she might be the best hitter in the SEC.
Sure.
Tennessee has Jenna Holcomb, who's, a very good table setter. Chelsea Sagers came on strong this year, as we've mentioned. So the bats, I think they'll be there. Maybe it's more of a slump thing with them right now. But pitching, that's more of the cause of concern. Obviously, we said that at the beginning of the season, and the question marks are still there.
Sure. And I'm actually going to, take the other road. I'm just going to a little bit disagree with you just a little bit, in a friendly way, of course. But, I think that the bigger issue right now, in my opinion, is the offense. That pitching, like you said, it is so vital, especially in this league, in the SEC. But, in Maddie Moss, you've got an experienced veteran. Mm-hmm. You've got a player that, she may not have great games. Obviously, in that last game against Georgia, she gave up 8 runs. But I think the key thing with that game was the lack of offensive production. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at that scoreline, you think, well, not only did the offense not produce, but, she gave up 8 runs. Well, those 8 runs didn't all come in 2 innings or even 3 innings. A lot of times Georgia would get 1 run at a time or 2 runs at a time. She gave up 2 home runs. I mean, that's never good for a team. But when you have Megan Gregg on the offensive side, a player that, like you said, can hit it out of the park at almost any at-bat, I think you said the all-time program leader in RBIs, which, interesting enough, she actually got, off of a hit by pitch.
Yeah, I mean, the weirdest way. The weirdest way that could have happened.
Yeah, that was just very interesting. It wasn't something you'd expect when you see RBI in the scoreline.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think what I saw in that game, that last game against Georgia, Maddie Moss, she didn't play poorly. She just had no help from her offense. Your offense, if you're a pitcher, they have to get you runs. I mean, you can see games where a pitcher might lose 1-0. Obviously, it wasn't this type of game. She did give up 8 runs, but and they wore run rule, but it was, I think, the bottom of the 6th inning. It was 6 innings, so they had that stretch of play. And if your offense doesn't get you enough runs as a pitcher, it's not going to amount to anything. So, and Tennessee has so much potential on the offensive side that they really don't have a lot of excuse to have games like that. You have Maddie Moss, you have Sager, and you have Brooke Vines. You have a lot of players that can produce for you. And, pitching, and it's going to come and go. Pitching is going to come and go for you. We know this, we see this in the MLB where you play, 162 games. Mm-hmm. You see this. Obviously, you don't play that many in college softball, but you do play a good amount of games. Pitchers, sometimes it's there, not. Sometimes it's not there, not. But your hitters, they have to be more consistent.
Okay, yeah. And with that point, I'll say that with the pitching, I think a pitcher like Maddie Moss, I mean, obviously any pitcher really, you get your confidence from, your run support most of the time.
Sure.
And, when your team spots you 3 or 4 runs in the first 2 or 3 innings, then there's no doubt about it. That affects the way you pitch compared to when you have 0 run support through 4 innings. And, I mean, there's no doubt about that affects the way you pitch as a pitcher. But at the same time, I would say the weeklies say it all the time. They just want these pitchers to throw strikes.
Sure.
That is the most important thing.
Karen says that all the time, especially.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I feel like the emphasis that they put on throwing strikes, and these pitchers, they should be the ones that are more consistent than the hitters. I mean, as hitters, it's hard. I mean, because for one, you have to, the old saying, hit them where they ain't. I mean, you got 8 defenders in the field, and you have to find the spots in that field to hit them where they ain't. So you combine that with, I mean, in softball, a good hitter may get 4 out of 10. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna get out 6 more times than than you're successful, and you combine that with, just at bats where you can have very good at bats and still get out. So I think pitching is what you expect to be more consistent, because you look at Maddie Moss going into that game. I'm not sure what her ERA is after that game, but she was around 1.33, I believe it was.
Yeah, I think it was exactly 1.33.
Yeah, going into that game. So, with an earned run average like that, that's, just a little over 1 run a game. And she's consistently done that this season. And Kaylin Arnold, her ERA wasn't that high either. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But with those pitchers, their earned run average is usually under 3 for Tennessee. If you're a starting pitcher for the Lady Vols, your ERA usually is under 3. So if you're giving up consistently around 3 runs or less per game, then I think the pitchers are the more consistent part of this team. But with those batters, every now and then you'll have someone go 3 for 4, then the next game 0 for 4. But still, that's 3 for 7 overall, so that's still a very high hitting clip. So hitting, I feel like, comes and goes more so than the pitching, and that's why I think, you'll have to live with that. Like, the best teams will win those 1-0 games, those 2-1 games. They call them pitchers' duels.
Yep. And
the team just has to manufacture those runs. So I think that's what Tennessee is definitely capable of. They call it a boop and a pop. You get someone on base, and then Megan Gregg or Brooke Vines comes in, and bam, 2-1. You win the game when Maddie Moss gives up 1 run. So I think the hitting, it's going to come and go more so than the pitching, especially in the SEC when you're going to get so many top-tier pitchers. And even though you have a very good lineup, you're at a disadvantage when you're going to get good pitchers, because you can have a very good at-bat. You can force a full count and make them throw 12 pitches, but eventually you can, line out, you can pop out, and, it's just you're at a disadvantage as a hitter. But that's why I think this pitching staff is the most important part to where this team will go this season.
Okay, for sure. So, obviously we'll see what the weeklies do, what adjustments they may make. They may not care too much about what we have to say about it, but you never know. We might, they might get an email saying, we'd like to hear your. I doubt it, but you never know. But okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about some Tennessee football. Obviously, Tuesday was the first day that the media was allowed to interview the players, talk to them under this new coaching regime under Jeremy Pruitt. DeMichael was there for us. He was actually covering that press conference for us. So DeMichael, just heading into it, what players did you get to talk to, and were there any main takeaways to take away from what they said?
Well, we got to talk to Cortez Sapp, who's a linebacker on the team. Drew Richmond, offensive lineman, I believe will be a senior this year. And Nigel Warrior's probably one of the most talented players on the team.
Sure.
Safety this year. That'll be a junior. And there weren't many takeaways from, the first they were pretty mum on, the things they had to say overall. But the one thing that stood out to me was one of the most glaring differences that they say that they have taken away from the Pruitt era, from the Bush Jones era, is the difference in the emphasis on meetings. And Drew Richmond said that the meetings are longer, and then Nigel Warrior added that how last year they had meetings, but they weren't this intensive. They weren't, this long, and he's demanding a lot more out of the players in these meetings, to where it gets to the point that when they get on the field, they have the mental part down.
Sure.
So obviously, in football and really in any sport, when you have the mental part down, it allows you to play at a faster pace, because you're not so afraid to make mistakes. And that's where Pruitt's trying to get this team, and I think that's a good idea, because growing up playing sports, the coaches always tell you that it's 90% mental and 10% physical.
Yep.
So 90% mental mostly comes from things like meetings. So if they're getting that part down, then when they get on the field, they'll be playing faster and they'll be playing with more confidence. So I think that was the biggest takeaway, the emphasis that Pruitt has put on meetings. He's talked about it to us already about how he's focusing in on these meetings with these position groups. But each Drew Richmond, he said that the meetings are longer. Mm-hmm. And Nigel Warrior talked about how intense they are. So that's definitely something fans can take away and look forward to seeing translate on the field.
Yeah, and I think that seems to almost be the theme of Jeremy Pruitt's first spring practice is that intensity.
Yeah.
And I think it is interesting that you mentioned that it is 90% mental, and
mm-hmm.
that as a player you play a lot faster whenever you have those mental reps down.
Yeah.
Whenever okay, this is what I'm supposed to do on this play. If the guard pulls over here, I'll follow him over here. Yeah, I'm in this zone. And I think we were seeing that in Pruitt's practices. We've talked about it before. They're more fast-paced than what we've seen before.
Yeah.
He seems to really be working these players, and that may be more due to we just need to get more conditioned, or it may be due to he has that same idea that you have, DeMichael, of well, if we get the guys in the meeting room and we get them to learn what they're doing, then we can really test them outside and we can push them further. And maybe a lot of that fast pace is due to the players understanding that.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely possible. And then I think it was good that you got to talk to Nigel Warrior. Obviously, he's a guy, that I remember thinking at the end of the last season, he was possibly the guy that I could have said was their best player on the team. I think he led the team in tackles. If he wasn't the leader, he was second or third for multiple weeks. He did lead them in tackles. And he wasn't a guy that was very loud, specifically. He wasn't, he plays a position where he wasn't going to get a huge amount of fame. He gets some more than like an offensive lineman or something, but he wasn't going to get a huge amount of fame. But I think he was a guy that was making tackles. I don't remember if he had an interception. I'm sure he did have some type of turnover.
Yeah, I don't think as a team they didn't have many interceptions. I think it was 5 for the season. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think that Nigel Warrior, just talking more about him, I think he's a guy that really could be a centerpiece for this team. Not only leading the defense, especially
mm-hmm.
with the situation with Todd Kelly.
Yeah.
We don't know where he is health wise. Obviously he has been working to get back from last season.
Yeah.
But if he's not ready to go right away, or if he's not ready to play as many reps as they'd like him to, I think that Nigel Warrior can even take more of that leadership role and move up.
Yeah, and another guy, obviously we talked to him too, was Cortez Sapp. And obviously, they're switching schemes this year. They're going for a 4-3 to a 3-4.
Yep.
Pruitt's running a 4-3 scheme, and last year Cortez Sapp was an outside linebacker. So when you switch to that 3-4, usually those outside linebackers in the 4-3 usually move inside, and that's what Cortez Sapp's doing this year.
Sure.
So one thing they've asked him in the offseason is to get bigger, because
mm-hmm.
obviously, he's going to have to take on probably more blocks. And as a wheel linebacker in a 4-3, you have more freedom of space, and
mm-hmm.
you're flying sideline to sideline. Well, now he's probably going to have to dodge guards.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So with that, they've asked him to gain more weight. And Cortez Sapp, we saw the potential there. Obviously, early in his career, he battled, injuries and things like that. But I think he's going to be a really key player for them, too, especially now that he's moving to that inside linebacker position. So now you look at the depth they have there now with, like, him moving inside. That adds depth because obviously at the other inside linebacker position, you still have guys like Daniel Batuli and Will Ignont. So Cortez Sapp, I think he'll definitely be one of the starters at that inside linebacker position. It'll be interesting to see what kind of weight he puts on, because I believe last year he was listed at like 214 pounds. So obviously, Pruitt, if you saw those Alabama linebackers and those Florida State linebackers, he probably wants them in at least that 225 range. So it'll be interesting to see his progress with his weight, and he likes it moving to that inside linebacker position. It's not much of a difference. He's still controlling the defense pretty much. But, yeah, that's another thing to watch, too.
And I think that is key, like you said, for a lot of these linebackers, especially when you switch positions as a linebacker, maybe move inside or outside, especially switching from a 4-3 defense to a 3-4 defense. It can change a lot of what you look for.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you're an outside linebacker in a 4-3 defense, you're more along those sidelines. Maybe, you won't be taking up as many of those blocks, maybe trying to make a tackle on the perimeter.
Yeah.
But then when you're inside, you might be asked to read a little bit more. See what the guards are doing, elude them, and sort of, I'm not sure if Pruitt prefers both of his linebackers to make calls to both of his inside to make calls to the defense, or if that's more, since that was more the middle linebackers role in the 4-3 defense. But it will be interesting to see how that takes place and how, a lot of these linebackers and then also just all the players on Pruitt's team really respond and really change to some of these position changes, and then ultimately the changes in the defensive scheme and the offensive schemes. But that's going to wrap it up for us today, guys. Thank you for watching. This is Tyler Wombles, and that's Michael Cole. We'll be back here next week for more Checkerboard Chat, more Tennessee athletics news and updates. So also make sure to keep updated on the on the Daily Beacon website for more, sports information, coverage, all that. But once again, guys, thanks for watching. This is Tyler Wombles, that's Michael Cole, and we'll see you next time.